Spider-Man No Way Home has officially released in theaters, so let's talk about it. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Diz TV. If this is your first time here, welcome home. We are so glad to have you. Now, I gotta tell you guys first off, there's going to be a lot of spoilers in this review. Like, so many. I'm literally going to spoil the entire film. So if you haven't seen the movie, please go away from this now, because there is a bunch of stuff that happens in this entire movie that sets up the rest of the MCU, sets up the rest of Spider-Man. So this is your warning. Leave now while you still have your chance. Let's dive right in. This movie has a lot to offer. I think a lot of people agree and have come to the consensus that this really is a fun action movie. This really is a lot of fun. It's very enjoyable from beginning to end, but it has a lot of heart and emotion tied to it. This is definitely the most emotional of the Spider-Man series, no matter what you're talking about, other than, you know, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, when Gwen dies, or, you know, some of that stuff. This is the most emotional Spider-Man movie. And I think just given what exactly is going on, obviously, Peter's identity has been revealed, so he's trying to balance that, trying to get accepted into college, which is a stressor for everybody once they reach that age, and just all this other stuff that gets added. Again, with the identity, with his friends being involved, all of that just creates chaos. And on top of that, you have all the villains creating chaos. This really is just a phenomenal film that pays homage and really is just a conglomeration of the last 20 years of Spider-Man movies. Moving into the characters, Peter Parker. Now, obviously, for those of us who've seen the movie, if you haven't seen the movie, why are you still here? Go. But for those of us who have seen it, we know that all three live-action Spider-Man are in this movie. Talk about a huge moment for us as fans to watch this unfold on screen. I mean, we heard the rumors, we saw set leaks, we saw all this stuff, and then we get to finally see it on screen. It was just amazing. First, talking about Tom's Spider-Man, what a journey he has been on the last three films, and really just is faced with such consequences and such challenges in this movie. He deals with a lot, but at the same time, he still has the characteristics that we've come to know from this iteration of Peter Parker. He has done such a phenomenal job with this character. This is Spider-Man for me. You know, Andrew's great. Toby's great. They're all great in their own perspectives and, you know, what they did. But I think Tom has really solidified himself to potentially be, for a lot of people, I know for myself, I think he's the best Spider-Man and Peter Parker we've seen on screen. Ned and MJ, these are two great characters. I mean, we've seen them along with Tom's Peter grow throughout these movies. And for them, they get a huge role in this movie. And we see their relationships develop. We really see what a tight-knit group they are. I mean, they open their college letters together, all from MIT. It just, the way it all was set up, they nailed these characters. And they brought a unique flavor and life to these characters. Specifically, I'm talking about MJ because there hasn't been a Ned till now, so obviously there is no real competition here. What Zendaya has been able to do really in the last two movies with Far From Home and now No Way Home, she's really nailed MJ. The two of them together really makes for one of the best couples in the MCU. It's a shame how it ended, but I'm looking forward to see where they play with this, hopefully in another trilogy. The other two Peter Parkers, of course, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, while they didn't have a lot of on-screen time. They had more than at least I was expecting. And they did phenomenally. I mean, they really just went right back into these characters and just, it was like no time had passed for them. Really, they just both did a fantastic job reprising their roles. The trio themselves is just, I have no words because it really was magic on screen to see them all together. The villains in this story has really been a pivotal part. We know that Spider-Man has some great villains in the comics, and this translated really well on screen. Seeing all the villains again, from Green Goblin to Doc Ock to Electro to Lizard to Sandman, all that was great. Each of them got a little bit of their own moment to shine. I feel like the Lizard definitely had was put to the side, because it seemed more to revolve around, obviously, Goblin got the most time, then Doc Ock, then Electro, then Sandman, then the Lizard. I think the cool thing with this movie was to see these characters in a new way, in a new light. So we got to see Electro updated, much better. Lizard didn't really change too much. Sandman really didn't change too much. But it was cool to see Sandman and Doc Ock still caring for Peter, in a sense. Doc Ock, his anti-hero style that they gave to us in Spider-Man 2 was still very prevalent, especially when his inhibitor chip was fixed. That was great. I really loved that. And the Goblin and his complexity, seeing the two of them go back and forth between the Goblin Mask and Norman Osborn was great to see. Again, especially since we haven't seen it since the first Spider-Man movie. And I'm just going to go out and say it. Green Goblin, with this movie in mind, I think has cemented himself to be the greatest Spider-Man villain because of this movie. Granted, he only had one movie in the Raimi trilogy, but he was involved in the other two along with. But this movie, I think, really cemented him. I know Doc Ock is considered to be the greatest Spider-Man villain out of all of them, and we all have our different, pieces with that. But I truly think, because Willem Dafoe did such a phenomenal job and gave Peter consequences. Aunt May, oh my goodness. Oh, this was so painful. She did an amazing job sticking by Peter's side the entire time, wanting to help him, giving him the great power, with great power comes great responsibility line. That was done really, really well. Her death was heartbreaking. It really just took I was not expecting that to really just take that much emotion. I'll talk about a little bit more on that with the story. Happy was great. He had a few things here and there. It was interesting to see his character and the interaction with May. And so it was done well. Matt Murdock, obviously, got to touch on this. Matt Murdock having a brief cameo in this movie. Oh, I am very excited. We now know that Vincent D'Onofrio is back in Hawkeye with Kingpin and all that other stuff. And Charlie Cox back as Matt Murdock. This was done so great. The fact that he was Peter's lawyer and helped him out, and just, I thought it was a really good cameo that I think could potentially set up a relationship between Daredevil and Spider-Man in future projects, because we haven't seen that yet, but it is in the comics, so I'm looking forward to a potential of that. And of course, last but not least, Doctor Strange, continuing to really be the I'm going to do what is best for the universe, not what's best for myself sort of character, and then reversing it because why not? The way they did his character was good. He continues to be, I think, one of the better characters in the MCU. Benedict Cumberbatch did a phenomenal job. I think some of his motivations are a little weird in this, and I'll touch more on that with the story. But overall, it's still Doctor Strange. We get to see a lot of things that we've never seen Doctor Strange do. It shows you how powerful he really is. Makes me look forward to the Multiverse of Madness to really see him come to fruition. I'm so excited for that movie. But let's move on to the story. This is where I think the movie does a good and a pretty good job. The story-wise, with all the villains coming together, is neat. I think it's done pretty well, but not entirely, like, grounded, I feel. Not grounded in the sense of, like, how the MCU is grounded, because it is not. But I feel like they could have done a few things a little bit better to make the story, I think, even more solid and more legitimate for the reasons for why these characters are coming back. Now, the idea that anyone who knows Peter Parker as Spider-Man comes back, I think works pretty well here. I think, I don't know, there's a lot with this story. This story is jam-packed with just a lot of points. And of course, I think the challenging part with this movie, and granted, that'll be for any possible future multiverse project where you're bringing in actors from other franchises, is that for those who are strictly MCU people, so they don't know about, like, the Fox X-Men or the other Sony movies like The Amazing Spider-Man or the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy, they don't know about those. They have no clue what the heck's going on, and they're seeing these characters for the first time, which in and of itself is cool, but you don't really get, I think, the same experience with knowing these characters and knowing the story as you would seeing it all for the first time. I think that's going to be a tricky thing that Marvel will have to figure out going forward, especially with rumors with the Multiverse of Madness. But besides the point, story-wise, I think it is a pretty solid story. We get a lot of time with Peter in this one. We don't get a lot of time with Spider-Man. I mean, we get a lot of time with Spider-Man, but we get a lot of time with Peter. And I think that is really, really cool, that we get to really just invest this time into this character. Because we really didn't get a lot of that, especially in Far From Home. He was primarily Spider-Man in that movie. And so to really see some more aspects of Peter Parker himself, not necessarily Spider-Man, was really, really cool. The idea of bringing, of course, back Toby and Andrew, followed with bringing back the villains, the way it was done shocked me. I was expecting it to be Doctor Strange pulling them back in, but no, Ned has magical powers, which is interesting, but it was done, I think, quite well, and them working together, the whole dynamic, very, very great. Seriously, I'm gonna keep saying it. It was pure magic to see all of them on screen together, and I am just very, very happy. As a fan, I'm very, very happy. And so with that, I think made the story so much stronger. It really was a good movie, and it became an even better movie, granted, once they came in, because they really had chemistry with each other. Andrew, Tom, and Toby all had this chemistry together, of course, which makes sense because they're technically the same person, just in different universes. Besides the point, the ending with Tom's Peter making this choice to forget Peter Parker in general, that was also heartbreaking. Again, this is a fun action adventure movie with a lot of heartfelt moments, and this was one of them. The other one was Aunt May's death. She gave, of course, the iconic line, "With great power comes great responsibility," which I'm sure we will hear echoed through the end of time, now even more so. In all seriousness, it was gut-wrenching. I was not expecting the story to have such heavy notes, and they nailed it perfectly. Just the interaction between the characters. You don't even need a lot of words from them. I mean, sure, you had some dialogue, the usual stuff, but you don't need any explanations. But it was just done so well. May's death was done so well. As heartbreaking as it was, I wasn't really expecting that. I mean, there was rumors out there and whatnot, but it was shocking even still. And you're like, okay, maybe she'll survive this. And then it's like, oh no, she won't. And it was done really, really well. Just overall. And of course, the end of the movie with everyone forgetting who Peter Parker is, that was done also really, really well. I was shocked. That was the part that shocked me the most. Was like, wow. Like, I was not expecting that at all. definitely a big curveball thrown by Marvel, but it was a great curveball that sets up the rest of the MCU, really. It sets up something very unique. I'm interested to see where they take it forward into a possible another trilogy or however that might look like, especially with other tie-ins into the MCU. The starting of it was a little rocky, but just the progression of it was done at top notch. Overall, my final thoughts on this movie, oh my goodness, it is intense. But this was done so well. Just everything from the score, Michael Giacchino has outdone himself again. He's just like one of those walking musical artist legends now. I think with the score, but just in general, he is a walking legend. And just the emotion, the characters, the story, which was pretty good. All of it made for a awesome Spider-Man story. Again, seeing the three on screen is pure magic. Seeing all the villains together was amazing. I mean, just the fact of seeing the villains again. You know, seeing Willem Dafoe and Alfred Molina and Jamie Foxx and Rhys Ifans and Thomas Church. It just, all of them together made for something of pure magic. It was seriously a fun ride from beginning to end. An emotional ride, but a fun ride overall. Honestly, I dare say it is the best Spider-Man movie of all time, currently. But it is the best Spider-Man movie of all time. I mean, again, how can you top all of this together and the idea of the multiverse coming to fruition? This is just the start of what is to come with this story. I mean, there's so much where they left off. I mean, the post-credit scene setting up future adventures, you know, with symbiote now being a part of the MCU. So I'm curious to see where that goes, because Eddie Brock doesn't exist in the MCU, I don't think. I don't know where that's going to go. Then, of course, you have the Multiverse of Madness, which, given time, we'll see a trailer within the next week or so. And also, that costume at the end was beautiful. This was a fantastic film. Now, to wrap it up with my rating and fun factor, I'm giving it a 9.5 out of 10. Seriously, I love this movie. It is an amazing time. Pun intended. But it fires on all cylinders. While the story can be a little rocky at the beginning, it finishes so strong and so well. And it just, wow. We'll see if it wins Best Movie of the Year for the Disney Awards coming up here in a few weeks. But for the fun factor, definitely have to give it an A+. This was such a fun ride. An emotional one, but a fun one. And with that, that wraps up this review of Spider-Man No Way Home. Let me know in the comments down below, what did you think of this movie? What did you like? What did you didn't? I'd like to hear in the comments down below. And if you're new to the channel, be sure to hit that like button if you enjoyed the video. And again, subscribe down below and hit the bell to be notified for more videos on Disney, Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars, the parks, and so much more. I'll see you all in the next video. Have a marvelous day. Goodbye.